I don't mean not to be a TEDx speaker. I don't mean to give up that goal at all. But you can do other things while you're preparing for your TEDx talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back on RCT, aka Red Circle Talk, How to TEDx, and I have a special guest for you. Someone that does this speaking thing every single day and also coaches, teaches, and consults people who have businesses, who want to speak and get on stages just like you. My friend, my new buddy, Leisa Reid, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. So excited to be here.
Yep. So, Leisa, before we jump in, I just want to do a little bit of an origin story breakdown. If you could just tell us what got you into your field, you can just give us like a quick rundown of your origin story. That would mean a lot to us.
Well, back in the day, I actually got my bachelor's and master's degree in speech communication, but it wasn't until decades later that I actually became a speaker when I was 40. And I started with 0 speaking engagements, 0 email list, 0 clients. And that very first year, I booked 83 speaking engagements in my local area and brought in hundreds of clients into an organization that I was representing. So that's kind of kicked me off in the speaking world.
83 gigs in 1 year?
Yeah.
That is wild. So talk to me a little bit about the ways that you secured those talks, because I know I'm in a bunch of like different speaking forums and stuff like that. And people are like, well, how do I find, a place to speak? Will they pay me? Will they not pay me? Talk to me about what does knocking on a door to get a gig for your first year look like?
Wow. I could talk. How long is this podcast? Ironically, my business called Get Speaking Gigs Now was born because of that very question. I have an international speaker network, and people in the network were always asking me that same question. They're like, how do you do this? What are you doing? And it wasn't until a couple of years later that I actually developed my business because of that question. And I thought, well, gosh, I don't know. What am I doing? And I had to really think about it. And I broke it down to 7 main steps. Like I call it getting your homework done. You got to get your homework done if you're going to be a speaker. And then there's also action. So there's getting prepared to be in the race. And then there's actually going and entering the race and completing the race. So you have to figure out your talk. I call it get your talk ready to rock. That's number 1. Figure out what are you talking about, why, and is there a call to action involved? I could go on and on about that. We can talk about that in a minute. And then figuring out who is your ideal audience. Got to figure that out, because not all speaking engagements are for all speakers, right? It's like just because you're single doesn't mean you want to date someone else who's single. And that's the only requirement. There's lots of requirements of yes, you do want to date someone single.
Some people don't, Leisa. Some people don't. Some people are out here poaching the married men and women of the world.
Don't do that.
So be very clear with them, Leisa.
I heard it as it was coming out of my mouth. And really getting yourself set up in terms of like, what's your pipeline going to look like? What's your monetization going to look like? All those things so that you can be really clean and clear when you're making those decisions of where you want to put your time and energy as a speaker.
Love it. So there's a lot to unpack here. I want to talk a little bit about monetization, because I think that one thing that someone taught me early on in the game, they were saying, I was like, yeah, because I just don't want to do free gigs. And he was like, well, there's no such thing as a free gig. There's like a paid gig and a non-paid gig. But when you have a non-paid gig, there's still ways to generate some revenue. So talk to me about ways that new speakers could monetize their voice and their messages.
Whoever told you that, I love them, because that's so true. I think as a new person into the speaking industry, it's easy to think, oh, I just want to be a paid speaker. And sometimes people want to get to Carnegie Hall, but they never took a piano lesson. And so you need to actually pound some pavement a little bit, right? and get some experience. I say you learn so much in that first 100 gigs because lots of things are going to go wrong. You could have everything perfect and all dialed in, and the lights go out, the projector blows up. I don't know. All these things can happen. So, when it really comes down to monetization, especially if you're a business owner or entrepreneur wanting to use speaking as a way to market your business, grow your business, you need to think about what's that next step for the audience to take if they are picking up what you're throwing down. Something you decide the night before your talk. This is something you want to really use your higher conscious thinking. Like, what would really excite me? What do I really think is going to be valuable for people? What would be an easy way for them to take that next step? Or maybe it's even if it's allowed, perhaps you're selling something from stage, you're selling a product or a service or program. Now, if you do not have anything to quote unquote sell, that's a little bit of a different conversation. Sometimes people, and maybe someone in the audience is listening, who I just want to speak full time and that's it. I don't want to sell anything. I don't want to do any services. That is then more the paid speaking route. So there's different nuances. Often I'll say speaking is like a deck of cards. What game are you playing? Like, strip poker is really different than solitaire. Two totally different games, but then sometimes games are similar. Gin and rummy are kind of similar. So what game are you playing, and when and why? And does it make sense for your personality, for your lifestyle, for your business? And that's how you can start monetizing. Like, you can make the sky's the limit, honestly, on how much you can make when you're speaking, quote unquote, for free, right? Like the non-paid speaking engagement. I mean, I think I have a client who made like $30,000 an hour at a non-paid speaking engagement, and she wasn't able to sell. So that's a good day. That's more than what she would have gotten as a speaker fee.
Love it, love it. So, talk to me. You mentioned at the beginning you started building out your email list in that first year as well, and many of our listeners who are new, they don't have email lists. Many of them rely on social media, building their
Mm,
brand on rented land. So I
yeah.
want you to just kind of, if I gave you a pulpit and a soapbox to get some people who are like, I don't need an email list, it's another thing, just kind of explain to them the importance of it and how powerful it can be. Like, I'm on your list, so I get your messages, and like, you do email marketing well. And I think that
Thank
it's,
you.
yeah, you're welcome. And I think it's really important for people to just understand that they don't own their social media platforms.
Robin, it's like you and I are sister and brother, because same. I'm like, why would you rent when you could own? And even when I have my Facebook groups, I have a system set up to, it's not required, but I set it up so that they will then come into the email list, because I have so many friends and colleagues who've gotten everything shut down. Even just the other day, I got Instagram saying someone wants to change your password. So no, none of us are safe. Someone could literally just take it all, and you woke up in the morning and it's gone, right? So that is not a secure place. Even with your email list, you want to download your list and save it just in case something happens with that software or whatever. So important to have an email list, because that's your collateral. That's like your tokens. If you want to start playing with other people in terms of collaboration, or they call it JV partnership, or maybe list swapping, meaning I don't mean you ever give anyone your list. Let me just be clear. But if you have an e-newsletter, you might say, oh, like maybe Robin wants me to promote his podcast because I have people on my list who are interested in TEDx. Maybe he's got an affiliate program, so that therefore perhaps I'll make something and he'll make something and everybody wins and gets what they want. I have an affiliate program for our speaker network because I'm like, well, I want people to be able to share the love who don't have a speaker network, and then they can win. So there's so many different ways that you can market your email list. It is a treasure. And it's okay. I think sometimes people think, oh, I'll never get to 1,000, or it's going to be so hard. If you set it all up, you don't have to keep working at it really hard. Like, just set it up so that all roads lead to Rome. Then it's just plug and play, just rinse and repeat it all the time. I have my opt-in list. I've created my opt-in, my original one, years ago. It's on the website, it's on my calendar, it's on email signature, it's in every nook and cranny. And then that's how it builds. I'm on vacation and I'll get email subscribers. That's how you want to be living, right? We don't want to be struggling all the time. We want to be like on vacation and seeing those subscribers come in, see those sales come in, see those clients come in.
And when a new aspiring speaker is first starting out building their email list, one thing that I hear is like, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to talk about? I don't have any
Yeah.
products. I don't have any services. Like, what am I going to do? Just like send an email every week saying, hey guys, what am I doing? Like, what would you recommend for folks to do if they're new without a product to sell and they're speakers wanting to start an email list?
I think you could, I mean, gosh, with ChatGPT, the sky's the limit, to be honest. We're so lucky right now. We don't have to come up with you don't even have to come up with your own thing. You could, let's say you're an expert. If you're speaking, you're an expert in something, right? You probably know a lot about something that other people don't know and they're interested in. You could literally put into ChatGPT or figure it out yourself. Um, let's say 52 topics, and then you send one a week out, and just like it could be just a little tip, a little strategy, a little story, a poem, a case study, a statistic. I don't know, like any of those things. And it could just be a short little, here's your tip of the day or tip of the week from your local ABC expert, right? And you could do that. You could also do a newsletter where you put one of your tips, but then you could add other things that are going on in the industry. Oh, there's this really cool article, or did you hear this? This is my favorite podcast. So you can be a resource for people. That's totally doable. And if 52 sounds crazy, do it every other week. Okay, now we're at 26. Yeah, there we go. 26.
Yeah, and that's one thing I tell
26.
people. I tell people all the time, Lisa, just go according to your bandwidth. Like your life,
Yeah.
you might have a full-time job, you might have kids, a family, a spouse, elderly parents, a dog, whatever it is. Like you have a certain amount of time that you can allocate to whatever that dream or that passion is. Just be okay with that. I think that sometimes people try to go so hard that maybe they oversell themselves in the beginning and then they burn out and then the dream kind of fizzles. I think slow progress, sometimes is the best way to go with that. So I love that you shared that.
I
Um,
agree with you.
Another thing I wanted to talk about was the idea of an aspiring speaker hyper focusing on a TEDx stage. So I know we talked a
Mhm.
little bit about it offline, but I want to bring it. I want to lift up the curtain and let everyone hear this amazing, position that you have on it, and also just so folks out there who are hyper focused on this one thing understand that there are options out there. So, what would you say to someone who is like, I just want to do a TEDx talk first, and then I'll start my speaking career? What would you say to them?
Oh, I would probably have some questions about like why and what's your purpose, what's your goal, what's your short-term, long-term goals in terms of speaking. Because if it's to gain clients and to get business, you will be stepping over a dollar to pick a dime in a way. I don't mean not to be a TEDx speaker. I don't mean to give up that goal at all, but you can do other things while you're preparing for your TEDx talk or applying. I mean, there's different stages, right? Just because you want to do it, you still have to go through the pieces of applying and then prep and then giving it. But then after you give it, then what are you going to do, right? So you want to be able to, can you make money while you're preparing? Yes, you could actually go out and shop it, just like Jerry Seinfeld. Like if he's going to do a big HBO special, he doesn't do that comedy act for the very first time for HBO. He goes to, some tiny town, like you might see, wow, Jerry Seinfeld's in town in my town. That's weird, because he is preparing for a big event, right? That's why he's doing all those things. So sometimes we forget, oh yeah, the experts, the NBA basketball players, they are practicing and practicing and practicing before they get to the big show. And so the same thing, you could do the same thing. Go and speak in your local area, speak in non-local areas, speak virtually, speak everywhere. You could get clients from doing that and get practice speaking. Let your nerves calm down, let your nervous system calm down, especially if you're a new speaker. I would often say, don't make your first speaking engagement the big speaking engagement where all the cards are on the table. Like, no, go practice first, then you're less nervous and more prepared as you go on, and you could get clients while you're doing it. So I don't know why you wouldn't diversify. It's like diversifying your money. You don't put all the eggs in one basket.
Love it. Love it. And for your clients, do you have any clients who have taken that TEDx journey? And maybe if you could just share a little bit about your experience working with them.
I don't have a lot, but it's definitely a conversation. And usually I'll say, well, you should talk to someone who's a TEDx expert because it's a whole different animal. But I know a lot of people who have done them, and it's a great way to leverage your authority, right? Which is super important when you're a speaker or an expert. You can add it to your bio. You can, of course, add it to your website. You can make marketing pieces out of it, cut it up. I think you're allowed to do that. I'm actually not sure now that I'm saying that out loud. You're allowed to do that, right?
Yeah, they can only be up to I want to say 90 seconds or something like that. You can only take a piece of your talk, so you can't distribute it in its entirety or past the limit. I believe it's 90 seconds.
Okay. So yeah, so then you have to make sure you're following all the guidelines. But sometimes what can happen is that we get so focused on our talk and the content, and this happens outside of this is I'm always talking about this. You can get so focused on creating your talk and creating value, you forget, oh yeah, I'm trying to build a business or I'm trying to get clients. How, and I don't mean that you can do that on a TED stage, but you got to think of the whole thing through. How am I going to leverage the TED Talk after it's done? So much of our focus is preparing for it and doing it, but there's a whole nother piece after that, making sure that your marketing plan is in place. Do you have, if you don't know how to do that, find somebody else who's an expert in that. Making sure you're milking it. I would say squeeze the juice out of the lemon as much as possible.
Yep. So I want to backtrack a little bit. Thank you for all of that insight on that topic, but I want to backtrack a little bit. Three letters that you mentioned earlier that always kind of warm my heart. You said CTA. And I find that so many times I see speakers get on stage, and when they get off stage, they leave with their ending point and they just kind of do a chuck up the deuces goodbye, right? And there's no solid or even not even solid, just intentional call to
Yeah.
action. Can you talk to speakers about ways that they can include CTAs into their presentations and why they are so important?
It's very important. In fact, when I work with people on their get their talk ready to rock session, we start at the end, which the end is usually the CTA, or I call it the invitation to the next step. Sometimes CTA can feel a little scary if for people who aren't in sales, but and oh, CTA is call to action, just in case we didn't say that. So there's so many different ways that you can do this. And I think this is what gets confusing if you're a solopreneur, entrepreneur, business owner who's never really done this before. And you could Google CTA and then you start thinking, well, I guess I have to do it this way. No. So my thought is you want to be really, really intentional. I love that you said that word, Robin. Intentional about what is it that you want the audience to do and why. And you want to think about it well before your talk, right? You're like, okay, this makes sense for my business. This is what I can do right now. This is easy. It's simple. And I love it, right? That's what we want to be. Because if you're not in love with your call to action, guess what? You're going to forget to do it. You're going to get all confused. The audience is going to feel some kind of weird thing from you. They're going to be like, no, I don't want to do that. So it has to be truly in alignment with you. Like just got to be like, I'm totally down for this. This audience would love this thing that I've got. And I think that's the missing piece in a lot of these. They're like, no, do it this way and it has to be like this. I say, no, it needs to be something you're in love with. And it could be really simple. A lot of times I'll see the resistance from my clients because I work with like really heart-centered, purpose-driven people. Maybe they've never done sales before, so they're starting to think like, I kind of just don't really want to do the sales thing. I'm like, well, you need to do something. You got to offer something. So what would you love to offer? And then we work through it. And sometimes I'll see people make it really complicated to get to the call to action. They're like, well, I could hand out a clipboard and have everyone write their name down. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. I could just tell them my name and like find me on LinkedIn. No, we're not doing that. Like, we have to keep it simple, sweetheart. We have to make it so easy. They could, they could do, some pretty cool stuff that makes it really easy.
Very nice. Very nice. Um, so we got speakers who are trying to figure out what their topic is going to be. What's your
Yeah.
position on speakers finding a really niched down area of expertise versus being able to speak on anything? And also, something that I'm seeing is folks maybe with almost like a Rolodex of topics and talks that they can give that maybe fall under that general umbrella. For the new
Mhm.
person, what would you recommend when it comes to niching down on a particular area of expertise?
I think it's important to niche down. And I think what's scary when you're starting is that you want to, and these are the things that I'll hear a lot. Um, I'll hear, well, I want to see what the marketplace wants, or I don't know what people want to hear. And so I'm like, okay, that's not where we want to go. What we want to go is really deep dive into what's your expertise, because whatever you do, whatever your slant is on something or perspective, that's your unique superpower. And maybe if it's in a little controversial or a little scared to say it, that's what people are interested in. And instead of being like everybody else, you really want to stand out. So what I do when I work with people is I call it, we're giving birth to your brilliance. We're actually like uncovering that thing that's unique about you. Say I work with different life coaches, right? If every life coach just did their talk about like how to uncover your limiting beliefs, or something that's boring that they heard in coaching school or something like that, we'd all be bored to tears, right? It'd be the same thing. But I would imagine that someone became a life coach because they had some experiences, they have a certain perspective that's unique, they have some kind of expertise, not just their coaching certification, but their life experience that then makes it, ooh, now that's juicy, that's different. And so I'm always like listening for like phrases I've never heard before. I'm like, ooh, I like that phrase. Okay, let's go deeper there because I haven't heard anyone say that. And it's usually something the speaker will say they're not even aware of saying it because it's just so in their zeitgeist.
Mhm.
So I'll grab that and we're like, okay, tell me more about that piece instead of just like the boring, everyone's doing it, everyone's talking about it piece.
Mm, that's good. That's good. Um, One thing that came to mind when you were talking about like catchphrases and things is that people will be interested in the thing that you just say casually every single day, but it's just a part of your like dialect or style or
Yeah.
just, your personality. And I'm thinking like if they don't have a coach or someone to help them, it's kind of hard if you just live in your silo to identify those things. Talk to me about the importance of aspiring speakers getting some kind of support and help and investing in themselves and hiring someone like yourself or a TEDx coach or a speech coach.
I think it's super important. I mean, like I said, I had not only did I have my bachelor's and master's in speech communication, I was hired by a company to speak. So it wasn't when I at that time when I was 40, it wasn't like I was scared to speak or anything like that. I was totally fine doing it. But I paid over $10,000 for my speaking coach back then because I thought, I want to see how this whole speaking business works. Like, what's the deal? Like, what am I doing wrong? Or I'm sure this person who's got decades of experience can help me see some things I don't see. Thank God she did because my PowerPoints were horribly ugly. She was very generously kind when she gave me some feedback. But man, I had a lot of work to do, and I knew how to use I knew how to use it. I didn't know how to do a sales slide. I didn't know how to do a call to action that like how what was expected. There were all these things that I learned along the way. Had I not learned that and paid that money, I would not be anywhere near where I am now.
Mm.
And I even will have speaker coaches come and review my talks every once in a while too. I'm like, okay, just because I do this for a living doesn't mean I can see all my stuff all the time either. It's hard to see the label from inside the bottle, right? You just can't see yourself. So I can tell, like for example, when someone's reading I just at a talk yesterday that I was at, and oh man, she started reading her intro, and I'm like, I could tell it was virtual, so I could tell through the sound of her voice that she was reading, and I wasn't feeling connected, and she's saying all the right words. I'm like, "Oh, man." Thank goodness she did let it go. Once she got into her story, she completely, like, let the words go, and then I was feeling connected. But I bet she doesn't even realize that I could tell that she was reading. So, she's not my client, so I'm not gonna tell her. I mean, I don't know. I'm not gonna just do that to someone. They don't want it my feedback. I'm not gonna give it. If she asks me, I
Excuse me,
would.
miss, are you
Yeah,
reading that?
yeah, I'm not gonna call anyone out. But we wanna really shine as much as we
Mm.
can. It's vulnerable being up there. No one can do your push-ups for you. So you wanna really put that best foot forward so that you can keep doing it again and again. I've been speaking now for over 10 years. I've given over 600 talks, and I don't cold call for speaking anymore. I haven't for over 10 years. I don't cold reach out for speaking because I've done the work, right? So, and I want my clients to be able to do that too. Do the work so that way you can use this for the rest of your career. The rest of you, as long as you want to do it, you can. So it's such a long game. People don't realize that.
Mm, mm. Gems, gems, jewels of wisdom. Listen, Lisa, I want to be respectful of your time. So I have one really important question I have for you before we finish up.
Okay.
For the new speaker who's listening, they somehow came across this audio or even video. What would be 3 actionable tips that you would give them if they were starting today? Never wrote a speech, never gave a speech, but they just know deep down inside that they want to get on a stage and they want to share their stories and their messages. What 3 tips would you give them?
I would say I call it get your talk ready to rock. I mean, like, start writing down some ideas of what you would talk about. Don't worry about the title yet. Just give it life. 2, where do you want to speak? And you don't need to have the exact name of the place, but like, who is in the audience? Who do you feel like you could serve? Are they women, men, of a certain religion, of a certain language, of a certain profession? Who are the people that you can really serve? And then 3, we'll go back to the call to action, the CTA. What would you want to offer them? Do you have something to offer? It's okay if you don't, but what do you think you might want to offer them so that they could come into your orbit, so they could get to know you a little bit better? That's what I would say.
I love that. Well, Lisa, before we get out of here, if you don't mind, could you share where the people can find you if they want to get in contact or if they want to learn more about your services?
Sure, super easy. You can go to getspeakinggigsnow.com/tips. So it's getspeakinggigsnow.com/tips because you want more than one gig and you also want more than one tip. I'm going to get 5 top tips to get more speaking gigs. You can get it there.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and we'll love to have you back on next season.
Bye.